times race directors do reach out to us and want to have confirmation that that we've captured photos of runners at certain places. Maybe they've missed a chip, maybe they've missed a timing mat or um, cut a corner here or there. And so we can either verify that we captured a photo of them at certain locations or that we didn't, indicating whether or not they truly ran the whole course.
Mhm.
As far as the bandits specifically, that's a little tougher for us because if you're wearing some type of a bib, um, it's hard for us to tell if you truly registered for the race or if you made a bib
Mhm.
yourself. Um, but we can use those photos to help race directors understand if there were some bandits on the course and whether or not everybody did complete the whole course and cross all the timing mats.
Welcome, Brad and Connor. Really great to have you here.
Thank you for having us. This is
Yeah,
a
thanks so
pleasure.
much.
So, for our audience, Brad is the president of Marathon Photo, and Connor is the VP of Internal Operations at Marathon Photo. And if you are a runner and if you have not heard of Marathon Photo, you're going to learn a lot. But in a high level, Marathon Photo is an organization which makes your memory of the race immortal or capture those moments. So we'll learn about more, but maybe you can quickly start, Brad, a little bit of history of Marathon Photo.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. Marathon Photo started in the mid 70s in Chicago. It was a Chicago-based company for a long time. The first race that Marathon Photo ever covered was the Chicago Distance Classic, which is now morphed into the Bank of America Chicago Marathon. But over time, we went from shooting film to shooting digital cameras and a lot more tech-based business now. And we're no longer a Chicago-based company. We're an Iowa-based company, and we currently have 6 full-time employees that manage everything, along with a lot of seasonal and freelance people that support us throughout the year on different projects and different things that we need done.
Great. Wow, it started in late 70s, so it's almost like 40 plus years in business.
Yeah, so actually 73. So
Okay.
we're a little over 40 years.
Oh, wow. Wow. And I know you are also with Martin Photo for 25 out of those 40 plus years.
Correct. Yeah.
I'm just curious, like what evolution you have seen in the journey of Marathon Photo. Some interesting journey facts that you want to share.
It has been interesting. When I first started, we were shooting on film, so every 36 exposures, you had to change film, change cameras, and then the film after the race, the film was collected, shipped off to a lab, re proofs returned to us for us to identify the proofs and put them on
Wow.
order forms and send them out to the participants through the U.S. mail for the participant then to look at their proof and decide whether or not they wanted to um, make a purchase. And then they filled out the order form, mailed it back. Versus now, within seconds after crossing the finish line, you have images in your photo gallery and you can click on them and purchase right there and download them just minutes after you've actually crossed the finish line. So uh,
Wow.
it's been quite an evolution.
I would think so. So was it more labor intense those days operationally?
Yes, absolutely. Not just on the day of the race, because not only did we have additional photographers because they were limited. Each photographer is limited on how many images they could capture on a day, just
Right.
because of the nature of the cameras that were being used and the film aspect. But also, we had to hire people just to load film. We
Oh,
literally
wow.
hired people that did nothing all day but just exchange film in each camera throughout the day. And then in our production team, like I mentioned, these proofs came back to the office, and then those had to be manually looked at by every single proof had to be looked at by a
Yeah.
person and identified the runners that were in those images. So yeah, a lot of technology has taken over some of that labor intensive process.
Wow. Wow. And if you have to look at, like, say, Chicago Marathon, I know you're one of the partnership with Chicago Marathon today versus, say, 25 years ago or 20 years ago. Like, how different it was in terms of operational or scale or human help that was needed to support those races or that race.
Well, 25 years ago, there was a significantly less runners, so that also
That's true. Yeah.
changed the dynamics just a little bit. Um, but we would hire more than double the staff, mostly because we had people changing film in the cameras 25 years ago,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
now we can hire just the photographer and not these assistants that work throughout the day. So that's a big change. Um, and then different types of staff that are on location. People like Connor that are uploading images throughout the day and making sure that those runner galleries are full. In the past, that was all those images were collected on rolls of film and shipped off to a lab.
Wow. Wow. That must be a massive operation. And then people are still waiting for your pictures or their pictures. And hopefully they get it within a couple of days, I would guess, in those days.
That was always the goal.
Okay. Okay.
There was just a lot of there's a lot of steps involved, right? You had to ship the film to the lab. The lab had to return the film to you with the proofs, and then you identified the proofs in the production team, and then the U.S. mail was how you delivered those proofs in the order form to the actual athlete. So, a couple days was always the goal. A week was probably more realistic in terms of how long it took to get those proofs to a runner.
I mean, if you look at today's, age of microwave way of looking at it, like we want everything instant. It is a good refresher to go back and to see how it was that time versus what it is today. So let's talk about the current state in terms of scale that you support races. Are there some data points that you'd like to share, you or Connor?
I would love to if you don't mind. This is where
Sure, let's go
I
for
get
it.
to flex my nerdiness. So we do about 250 events a year. So last year we took 23 million images.
Wow.
So if we printed them all out as 8x10s and laid them across the road, it would get you from Washington State all the way down to Key West, Florida.
Wow. It's coast to coast or north south, pretty much. Yeah.
And yeah, but as
Yeah.
far as you can go, basically,
Right.
on continental US. Last year, we shot just over 1 million participants. If they all lived in the same city, Marathon Photo would be the 10th most populous city in the United States.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm petitioning for Marathon Photo Iowa to be incorporated here. Glad I can be the man.
Great.
And if you took all the data from our images, about 60 terabytes of data, which is about 15 million songs. If you started now, you could play continuously for about 30 years.
Wow. That's a ton of data
It's
or
a lot of data, yeah.
images. Yes, that's true. Anything else?
That's as fun as we get.
Oh, wow. No, thanks for sharing. It's incredible. With DC to Key West, you can cover the road. Wow, with the images there. Um, One of the key things I'm curious, right? So, as a runner, I'm running a race, and I did Chicago in 2022, and I've seen Marathon Photo folks with their, logo and taking the pictures, and I happen to see some of the pictures you do. And it was pretty instant when I got, it's 2022, a couple of years ago, within a day or so, I got the images that, go there. I'm just curious, Connor, like, so I think Chicago has what, 20,000 plus runners now, or it's growing every year.
Yeah,
Um,
closer to 50.
is it okay? And then so many runners, and you're taking images. I'm sure there's a lot goes on how we actually identify runner with their bib numbers, right? I'm just curious if you want to shed some light on the technologies used for that process.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, as you mentioned, there is a lot going on, right?
Right.
As Brad said, we started with film and people were looking at each one and identifying. Up until a few years ago, we were still mostly manually IDing the images. So we would send them off to a team that would look at each image and manually type in IC bib 1, 2, 3, 4 and move on to the next. And then starting a couple years ago, we started using more AI and more tech to integrate more of your image. So a computer can read your bib, but they can also see if you're wearing a hat, what color shirt you've got on, what time you're crossing a certain timing mat, and use all that to find some more images of you that we would not have found before, right? You know, the 50,000 runners, it gets pretty dense.
Right.
So especially early in the race, you're together or someone's in front of you or your arm is covering your bib partially. We can use a lot more technology to find a lot more images of you than we could even when you did Chicago a couple of years ago.
Wow. And is there a approach or strategy how you position the photographers across the course that, or is a certain approach that goes in there?
Yeah, the first thing we're trying to do is capture the essence of the race, right? If you're doing Chicago,
Sure.
we want you to look at your images and say, I'm in Chicago, right? So it's you under the L tracks, you know, get the skyline in the back, get the
Mhm.
river, those sorts of things, right?
Yeah.
And then we're trying to find areas on the course where we can either we know there's a turn or a hill, so you're going to be going a little bit slower. We know it's not going to be as dense in certain areas. So, you know, the start line is shot is really cool, but you're standing there with 50,000 other people, right? So
Right.
it's a
Right.
little, unless you're in the front, it's a little tough to get you, right? So we try to space out photographers in areas where we know it's going to be a little bit more spread out. You're going to be able to see us as well as we can see you, right? So you can give us a smile and you can wave. And we can get the best shots of you.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's great. Yeah. I was talking to Frankie Lewis of Miami Marathon. One of the things that I learned what was fascinating, the uses of this called crowd scientist with the use. Like, somewhere you put the width and the, narrow down certain roads to manage the crowd better ways. I was wondering if it goes into consideration as you put the photographers, like, hey, there will be this stretch where there will be less density of folks or runners, so that you can capture more like good shots versus crowded spots where it may not be able to capture all the runners in the right way. So they can overlap with other runners. I'm not sure if you're using those crowdsourcing technologies or crowd management scientist inputs into those or when you put a photographer on the course.
Yeah, absolutely. We do. We're always looking for a pinch point, right? And I
Ah,
think Frankie talked about that as well, that if you have a pinch point on the course, then it sort of fans people out a little bit, spreads them out a little bit, especially when we look at the locations that we're looking for to implement road art. Because if we can have a narrower place and we can be right behind that,
right.
that just provides a more compelling photo for that individual because they're going to be spread out and it's going to be less of a group photo, more of an individual photo.
Right, right. Oh, okay. So that's good that you are taking that input as well as you put photographer strategically. And Connor's point is right. You want to have those images capture the kind of spirit of the city or the location where the race is. So that makes sense to make sure that you're capturing those as well. Um, Now, coming back from a runner point of view, one of the things, and I have seen myself and I've heard so many runners, and I'm sure you do all the time, hey, like this picture captures, I'm dying, sort of thing, right? Because everyone is running a marathon or races, kind of. What, as you are professionally appointed to capture the best moments, like, is there anything you are doing to mitigate that? I don't know if it's a complaint or it's most of the runners talk about it. Like, I look like I'm dying right now on the course.
My first reaction is good. Like, you know, that's we're trying to capture your day, right? So if that's how you
Sure.
were looking and feeling, that's part of our job, right? Is to capture that. I think to mitigate it, you know, we try to prepare runners as much as possible as far as where we're going to be and what types of shots we're going to take. So, you know, for Chicago, we'll be at the expo a few days before. We'll have a booth and we'll have the course map and show where all our photographers are going to be. So even if you're not feeling great, you know, hey, in mile 20, marathon photo is going to be there. So maybe I'll muster up a smile or wipe some sweat off my face and at least look like I'm having a little bit of fun, right?
Yeah.
But you're right, it's tough. You got so much going on in your mind, right? You're tracking your race, you're trying to keep breathing and keep going. And then you're like, oh yeah, by the way, I got to smile. Thanks a lot. But we have found that it helps, finish line, people know where that is. So they're always ready. But we try to tell people in advance, hey, when you're going through Kenmore Square, look for us here because there's the shot with the sicko sign in the back and you're going to want that right. And you're going to want to look really cool in front of it, even if you're tired.
No, that's great. Yeah, I know people get extra conscious when they're approaching the photographers, I mean, some people go out of the way to make sure that they don't look like they're going to die on the course or something like that. Um, are there technologies that are also using to enhance that experience? I know you talked about use AI technologies. Um, I'm talking about photoshopping or some kind of image enhancer that it captures the best possible ways. Are there any technology that are being used to post production or during the production of the images?
There are, yeah. So
Oh, okay.
we're, especially in the last year or two, we are enhancing all images.
Okay.
Um, we use some AI for that. We're not trying to, doctor your look. We want you, like I said, we want you to look how you looked on the
Real.
course, but we're
Yeah.
mostly
Yeah.
trying to give you the best possible image, right?
Yeah.
Especially for a marathon, it's just such a long day. The lighting changes, the weather changes. Um, you'll be out in the morning and it could still be dark at some races, and then the sun comes out and then it rains for a little bit and it just changes so much of the lighting, right? And then for our photographers who are there trying to get people nonstop, sometimes it takes you a minute to go, oh wow, the sun's out, I got to adjust
Yeah.
my settings, right?
Right.
So the AI has really allowed us to enhance all these images, so when you get it, you can look and say, wow, this should be in Sports Illustrated, right? I look, even though I may look like death, I
Yeah.
look really cool doing it, right?
Okay. That's good to know. So, Connor, can you maybe share a little bit to the extent you can, kind of the process it goes through? So, a photographer takes a picture and then within the same day almost it's available to the kind of the runners or the event participants, like what it goes through. I know we heard what Brad just explained to us like maybe 20 years ago, but I was like curious, like what does it look today?
Yeah. So now, especially in a major, our goal is to get your finish line shot within a minute, basically. So we've got
Oh wow.
the finish bridge, right on top of the finish line. So that's where I hang out all day. I've got some great photos of me with my 8 laptops and coats and all these things going on.
Oh, is it okay?
And we tether our photographers right to the laptops there. So we take an image, it goes right into the laptop, gets loaded to the cloud. From there, it gets enhanced almost instantly. And then it goes through the first round of image IDing, which will mostly be timing data and your bib number, if we can see it clearly.
Okay.
And again, that's gotten much faster too, right? So that goes through round one, and then it gets pushed into your gallery based on your bib number. And then if all goes well, you'll get an email that says, hey, Kamal, congrats, you just finished your marathon. Your first photos are ready. Go take a look.
Oh,
And again,
wow.
the goal is to have that all done within about a minute.
Wow, that's fascinating. So you are talking about, if I could take an example of Chicago, 40,000 runners, pretty much everyone is getting their photos that was captured throughout the course within a minute of it was taken that can be ready for them potentially
Finish line,
at
yes.
the finish line. Okay.
The rest of the course does, I think that's our goal, right? Perfect world. Right now, the biggest bottleneck is bandwidth. At the finish line, we can get some pretty good internet connection.
I
We
see.
can get a hard wire, so it moves along. I think maybe in 5 years, there's a world where everybody on the course has this, and we can tether them all and get them all up. So by the time you exit the park, you've got
Yeah.
all 80 images.
Yeah.
But right now, it takes us a little bit more time for the on-course shots. So they'll come in once their location's done and all the runners are passed. We upload those images, and then the process starts again.
Oh, okay. So when talking about a minute, we didn't talking about the pictures taken at the finish line,
Exactly, yeah.
sort of. Okay. Okay. Oh,
And then the rest is just it's a lot of data to go through, right? So in
that's true.
Chicago, we'll take probably 1.8 million images
Wow. Okay.
total. That still takes a little while to get up to the cloud, right?
That is true. Yeah. Yeah.
Finish line is a little bit more manageable, just to zone in on that and give that a ton of bandwidth.
Yeah.
So that's why we can do that, which is cool. But still, we'll get everything uploaded by the end of the night. Brad and I and team will sit in a room and pound through memory cards and get them up into the cloud, and then the IDing process starts. So usually by the next morning, you'll have a solid chunk of your images, and then we're able to go through and ID again. So we can say, we've got 30 pretty good pictures of you, but now we know more about you, right? We know for sure what color shirt you're wearing, or, hey, at mile 15, you took off your jacket. So that's why we missed you in some of these shots, right? So we can go through and find comb. And we end up usually finding a significant number of additional images.
Oh, wow. How do you handle this scenario where I have seen a lot of my fellow runners, they have their bibs in a lot of different places that not supposed to be. You have in your thighs, you have in the back. How do you handle those edge cases?
Yeah, well, we always tell people wear your bib where we can
Yeah,
see it, right? At
yeah,
least for
yeah.
part of the race. Because as long as we can get one good shot of you with the bib,
Mhm.
and we can see kind of what else is going on, then we can find all sorts of other images. But yeah, if you've got it, if you're holding it or if it's on your back, it does make our job really tough, to be honest.
Well, that makes sense. Now, let's talk a little bit about kind of the evolution. I can see where it come from 20 plus years ago to today. It's like huge. And as I look at image photography, um, there probably would be an ideal day where everything is 100% or near 100% automated. Like you can capture as many images as you can in real time. You're delivering it there. Are you and Brad are thinking in that direction, that future state, or are you on that journey? Or if you are, I'm just curious, like how does the journey look like as you're looking at it from today?
I think the biggest part of this journey is just to continue to enhance the images as much as we can.
Mhm.
Not like as Connor said, not to change how you look, but just to soften the lighting or smooth the skin tones, that type of thing, and make that picture look as nice as it can be and use that technology. The other part that Connor already hit on was just the internet bandwidth.
Mhm.
Um, Whether you ran a short distance or a long distance, you always want that instant gratification, right? You want that
True.
immediate image to show off and show to everybody what you just accomplished. And right now, our biggest bottleneck. We're limited by the internet bandwidth that we have at these races or in any venue. And so I think those are the two ways which into the future the technology can really help us.
Hmm. And is that a problem not cannot be solved today, the internet bandwidth on the course, or there are infrastructurally unrealistic situations that you cannot solve it?
Yeah, we're certainly getting there. I mean, we've tried, mobile hotspots and
Uh-huh.
these like home internet things, but it's just, you get 50,000 people on the course plus all the people around the city. Like New York City is busy anyway, and then everybody comes out
True.
along the course. You can just
Right.
see it on your phone, right? It's like you
Yeah.
can go an hour with one bar.
Right.
So I think we're getting there. Especially, at the finish line, we can get a hard wire, so that alleviates some of the bandwidth
Okay.
issues. Um, I think, yeah, maybe in 5 years or so, we'll see more of that being accessible along the course.
Yeah.
Uh, I think as far as automating more things, one of our biggest strengths is probably our team of photographers who have done this
Hmm.
for 20 to 40 years for some of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And they're just incredible pros, right? They know just what they're looking for. They know how to get a focus on different paces. They know how to get the backgrounds, right? So that's really hard to replace.
Mhm.
I think an area where automation would be helpful is areas where you have to get a shot, like the finish line.
Uh-huh.
Because we talked earlier about we like the shots that capture the course, and we pick those on purpose, but we can't really pick where the finish line is,
Sure.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
So like in Boston during half the day, it does get pretty backlit,
Mm.
and it's a hard shot to get, but it's the finish line shot, right? Everybody
Right.
wants it. You got to get it. So there we'll use some automated cameras just from different angles at different exposures to try and get the best shot we can, even though it's not the most ideal shot.
Mm.
But with our tagging process, our algorithm is already picking up who's a runner.
Okay.
So it, kind of puts a box around you, and it knows that that's a bib and this is a body. I think it would be cool if we could use that to crop some of these images.
I see. I see.
We use kind of like a wide angle shot on different sides to make sure we get you at the finish, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Plus 6 people on the ground and 4 people on the bridge. Like, we're gonna get this shot. But sometimes all you get is the one that was someone ran right in front of you, right? So you just get the one that was the auto camera. I think it'd be cool to use AI to say, well, we know that's a body, so let's crop it and then enhance from there and get you a really high quality shot from that trigger shot.
Interesting. One of the other thing I saw on the website, I'm not sure it's how if I read it correct, is that the images that you are sending, they are kind of social media ready. I'm just curious, like how you end up doing it, because every channel has their own set of kind of requirements of the size and width and that you have to do. So you are able to do that almost real time, looks like.
Yeah, our goal is that you don't need to go in and add a filter and do all these enhancements. It's that we kind of have our own look and feel that's going to feel social media ready.
Hmm.
And for most of the shots, yeah, we want it to be specs that could be cropped to
I
square,
see.
story, that kind of vibe. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, because I think I didn't know that it was. And sometimes you want to put it in Instagram, so you have to make sure that it's a square image. You have to put it in there, and Facebook is a different one. If you want to go and in other channels, LinkedIn or wherever you want to put it in the channel, you have to customize to their kind of requirements, and you're taking away that friction from those runners or that extra effort they have to put in. That you're making it ready for them, they can use it. Which is I didn't know that till I am talking to you and Brad. So it's just great to know. I'm sure my listeners probably will pay attention to that next time they get the images from Marathon Photo. Um, if I'm looking at it and a runner point of view, and I am very curious about this fact, what is a runner buying for? What are they buying when they're taking okay, this is the Marathon Photo picture. I know there are packages that are normally sent from the event organizers. Like, what are they buying?
That's something else that's evolved in the last 10 years.
Mhm.
It's mostly now focused on digital images.
Okay.
The most popular package is all the digital images plus your video. And
Okay.
especially at major marathons, the video product is pretty cool. It shows, we get the GPX file, so we can get, it almost looks like it's following you along the map, and then we can zoom in at certain spots and we can see you running and crossing a road art location and crossing the finish line. And then, yeah, that package has all your images. So the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's by far the most popular because people can print them at home. They can share them. Like Brad said, we want instant gratification, right? You want to be able to make your post the next day. I think the nicest thing is we'll often see people post kind of their whole journey on Instagram the next day, and then
Mhm.
use some of our images, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Makes us feel good, but we like to be part of the experience, right? We see them training, we get the shots of them out running in the snow, and then we get 3 or 4 where we can say, hey, that's one of our shots, and that's them at the finish line, and then with the beer at the post-race party.
Mhm.
It's cool to see us as part of the journey.
Oh wow, that's good. I know I was chatting with Brad, and another fact that you mentioned that um, what the runners are buying is also helping future races, and I was curious about that. If you want to share a little bit about that as well, and how does that happen?
So each race is set up a little bit differently in terms of our relationship with them. But in virtually every situation, there is some type of revenue share where we contribute back to the race. So a
Oh, okay.
percentage of everything that a runner is purchasing is going to fund the next race, the future race. So it's one of the best ways, in my opinion, one of the best ways to contribute to the future races and ensure that those great races continue to exist and they continue to build and have more amenities and better services is by purchasing your photos because that money's going to go back to help that future race.
Yeah, so they don't have to use the watermark images, right? I think we have seen quite a bit being used,
Yeah.
watermark images there. Now that's very good to know. And is that fact known to the runners? I'm sure it depends on the how what kind of partnership you have with the event organizers. But when the communication goes to the runners, are they aware of that fact that if they're buying it, they're actually supporting the future races?
No, that's
No.
really
Okay.
not publicized at all.
Oh, okay.
Probably something that we should um, notify the runners in a better way or communicate in a better way. There are some races where it's communicated pretty clearly because they are focused on a specific charity group or organization, such as like the St. Jude's Memphis Marathon.
Hmm.
Um, but for the most races, no, this isn't really communicated
I
clearly
see.
anyway.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if it'll make a difference to your conversion in terms of people buying or not, but I'm just, just curious to the fact that, sometimes it may help them. Hey, they know that, hey, I really enjoyed this race. If I'm buying it, I'm supporting the next races. So maybe it will help your conversion rate. I'm not sure, but it's something to consider. Um, Today, Marathon Photo only operates in North America, right? Is that correct?
We're primarily in North America. We also
Okay.
have some European clients and one client in Indonesia. But the majority of our clients are in North America. You are correct.
And is that kind of consciously you are trying to have focus on US only, or not gone into outside US yet, or being very thoughtful what races you support outside US?
Well, we have a sister company that operates in Europe.
Oh,
And
okay.
so there's no, and they do a fantastic job. We have the same tech support. So you're going to receive the same high quality image that you do from us. Um, so there's really no reason for us to compete in the European market with our sister company. We do a lot of support there. We do have a couple European clients that we've had just for 20 plus years that we continue to service those under the Marathon Photo brand. But for the most part, we are North American based and focused.
Okay, okay. No, that's great. I saw that you support obviously three of the big six majors: Boston, Chicago, and New York. Probably these are the biggest events, and then some other iconic races too. Um, if I'm looking at from a race or event organizer point of view, I'm just curious, be your take on, as I see it, you're building a lot of partnership with runners, and I can see your communication that goes out from Marathon Photo in different channels. I'm just curious to see, how does this partnership looks like? How do you approach building those partnerships? In a sense that, hey, if there is a race director that, hey, looking to say, hey, I need to be partner with Marathon Photo tomorrow, how does it look like? Like what can they can expect? I'm just curious if you want to shed some light on that.
Sure. Well, first, my favorite part of your question is you asked about the partnership, because we never want to be seen as a vendor. We
I
will
see.
always want to be seen as a race partner because this is leading up to a race. This is a 12-month process for us to um, work side by side with the race committee, with the race organizers, make sure that we are aligning with their goals and objectives, not just of the race organization, but also of their major sponsors, so
Mhm.
that in the end, we highlight everything, the race, the city, the sponsors. And at the end, we're also celebrating and inspiring those athletes that took part in the race. And so we have certain things that we want to work with throughout the entire year with the race, building up to that 1 day event.
Mhm.
So that's really where we go about how we go about this.
Oh, no, that's a very good point that you highlighted. You're actually highlighting the race, the place, the athletes, and a lot of things that make those races special or unique to that place itself. Um, as you're working with them, do you also work with the local authorities as well, or it's more on the event organizer that take a lead on, but you get informed?
Local authorities in terms of like security, is this what you're
That's what I was getting. I have the follow-up question, which is more on one of the biggest challenges as I was talking to even Deb McIlvery and Frankie on especially race director point of view is the weather part, which I think play a critical role for your to be successful as well. And I'm talking about local authorities, either the weather department or the police department, how the race day would be look like, how do they plan the race? Because that probably dictates or kind of give some direction how you want to approach the race, where to put the people on their safety and all those things.
So for most of the races, we're working through our partners.
Okay.
Um, in conjunction with those local authorities. So we're not going necessarily going directly to the local authorities, but we're working through our race partners to communicate and to understand where we should be, what precautions we should take, if there are any precautions that we should take, anything that we should be mindful of on race day.
Oh,
Each
okay.
race is different. I mean, as you can imagine, we hit some sensitive areas, right?
I
So
see.
New York City, we're on the Verrazano Bridge. Just that process of getting people access to the bridge is pretty intense. You know, they have to go through background checks.
Hmm.
They have to get there incredibly early in the morning, and then they got to get on the bridge and walk to the middle.
Yeah.
Um, Brad is notoriously on speed dial with the Capitol because one of our races is in DC, and we need to get permission to be in and
Okay.
around that area, right?
Hmm. How interesting. So it depends on kind of the risk course and the city and a lot of variables that plays a role. So that brings me a point like what would be some challenges or fun things that you have seen as you have captured, billions of pictures so far? Is there any crazy or fun moments that you can share? Because you have seen a lot probably by now.
Obviously, we see a lot of marriage proposals.
Ah, cool.
We those pop up at every major race. We've seen a few celebrities. There's probably been more celebrities out there that we've just not recognized because we're busy doing our jobs, but there's certainly been some celebrities out there running marathons. Um, and some of the challenges that you hit on, I think one of the biggest challenges that we always face is weather. It's
Okay.
You can prepare for a sunny, beautiful day, and then Mother Nature has other plans, and you have to react to it. Obviously, we do have forecasts, and we're linked into our partners' um, weather forecasts, so we know what to expect, and we prepare for those conditions. But it can change some of the plans that we have for race day.
Oh, wow. How do you mitigate or even plan for not a great weather can go either direction? It's rainy, it can be too cold, it can be, too windy. I know Chicago is another one. How do you plan for those kind of situations?
For the most part, we take every precaution that we can to protect our people and protect our gear.
Hmm.
Um, the toughest is always when it's raining because our cameras are all electronic and they don't function real well when they get wet. They don't even function when they get damp most times. So we have to just take precaution to protect our people, protect our equipment on the rainy days, on the really cold days. Similar precautions, make sure our people are dressed properly
Hmm.
for the conditions, and then take some precautions to make sure that we have extra batteries on hand because batteries will go dead faster in colder temperatures than they will in warmer
Yeah.
temperatures. And then on the hot days, again, making sure that people are properly prepared for the conditions out there, making sure that they have water and whatever else they need to keep themselves cool and able to work throughout the day.
Yeah, because I know I ran Boston in 2018. It was kind of rainy, kind of not so great weather. Because I know of this race to be, you don't know the weather would be like maybe a day or two before the race, like which direction it's going. Is there a race that has been very challenging for you over the years? Like, no, we do not know till the last moment how the weather going to be, or just all the races are like once in a while we get the situations.
We've had some pretty extreme weather at a lot of races.
Ah,
Um, so Boston has been wet a few times, as you mentioned.
yeah.
It's also been cold, it's been windy, but so has a lot of other races. But for the most part, we really luck out. We typically have really beautiful weather at most of these races. It's the few extreme stories that our photographers like to tell.
Yeah.
But those are like, one in a million. But those memories stick with them forever about how they, built a tent or something to protect themselves along the course. Or a lot of our photographers have these portable pods that you've probably seen that protect people.
Hmm.
Um, and so that helps. But yeah, those are the stories that they love to tell when they get together and come to one of these races. They tell the stories about the extreme weather that they endured. But for the
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
part, we're pretty lucky. We we have nice weather at most of the races we go to.
No, that's good to know, and I think probably it's better for everyone involved in the race if the weather is
Absolutely.
it's good,
Yeah.
smooth operation for sure.
It is
Um,
interesting though. We see those make for some really long days, right? But afterwards, the demand for the photos tends to be higher on
if it's a
days
bad
that are
weather
either
day,
really cold or really rainy. The photos do come out pretty cool, especially if you get like rain coming in your face, right?
yeah,
You
yeah.
look, you look like a bad man. But also it just tends to be some of the more memorable races for people. You know, it may not be your best time, but you say, I did it, right? I survived a marathon and bitter freezing or with rain in my face or wet
Yeah.
shoes since mile two. Pretty cool.
Now, actually, I'm just recollecting my memories of all the races. Actually, I go back to the pictures of Boston Marathon all the time because it was a day like this, pouring rain, super windy because I was not sure if I'm moving forward or I'm in the same place running because it was so windy. And some of the pictures are like this. You like look like you're conquering something. And I'm like, okay, you're just running on Boston Marathon on Route 130 or Route 30.
You want to relive those heroic moments, right?
Yeah, that makes you
Yep.
feel like that. That's so true. Um, Another area I thought it would be good to get your thought that I had the opportunity to chat with Frankie and Dave as well on the pod, Brad and Connor, is the integrity of sports. And I know when I was talking to Frankie, he mentioned about bandit control program. It's more on people who are not supposed to be on the course are on the course. Like, have you seen that the race director is seeking help from you to help in those directions? Like, because you're capturing everyone passing on the course.
Yeah, so several times or many times race directors do reach out to us and want to have confirmation that we've captured photos of runners at certain places. Maybe they've missed a chip, maybe they've missed a timing mat or um, cut a corner here or there. And so we can either verify that we captured a photo of them at certain locations or that we didn't, indicating whether or not they truly ran the whole course.
Mhm.
As far as the bandits specifically, that's a little tougher for us because if you're wearing some type of a bib, um, it's hard for us to tell if you truly registered for the race or if you made a bib yourself. Um, but we can use those photos to help race directors understand if there were some bandits on the course and whether or not everybody did complete the whole course and cross all the timing mats.
I see. No, I would think it would be really a tough challenge to figure out like what's behind that babe or somebody's really is there supposed to be there. Yeah, because I know Frankie mentioned he's considering can he's you know look at it from different images and all, but it would be really tough to figure it out real time. Like 'cause you have to figure out when the race is happening versus later when you analyze those. I think that it poses a lot of challenges. Now, I cannot wrap up our conversation without talking about what's ahead for Marathon Photo, Brad and Connor. So, what's next?
What's next? That's a great question. One that we talk about on a weekly basis. You know, from day one, we have been focused on celebrating and inspiring athletes.
Mhm.
And we originally, as we started, we originally just followed that path by capturing images on film, and now we're doing it with digital images, and now we're enhancing those images, and we're getting those images faster. So we're going to keep moving ahead on that path of how can we celebrate and inspire those athletes and using technology to our advantage. And in most cases, that's going to be a lot of the things that Connor just hit on, which is increasing the bandwidth so we can get those images to runners faster and just creating other filters and other ways to enhance those images so that you look the best that you can possibly look. And
Mhm.
then out of that, there's probably going to be some additional products that come about that runners are going to want to have either some type of a social media type of image or something else that's going to be appropriate.
Interesting. No, that's great to know. And thank you for sharing what's ahead as well. But it has been a really learning experience for me to learn, what goes on actually to get that image that can relive after the race. So thank you for sharing, and great to learn about all the technologies being used. Connor, thank you for sharing that background as well. Wish you all the best. So what is the next big race for you? I would guess Chicago.
Chicago is the next World Marathon major. We do have some other races coming up
In
between
between.
now and
Okay.
then. Yeah, we've
Okay.
got Montreal Marathon coming up this weekend and Twin Cities shortly after that. Milwaukee Lakefront, St. George. The calendar's quite full, but yes, you are correct. Chicago Marathon is the next World Marathon major that we'll be covering.
Well, all the best, and
Thank you,
hopefully
Kamal.
we'll be in touch.
Thank you, Kamal. It's been
Thank
a
you so much.
pleasure.
Yeah, agreed.